Peace and blessings. And I am just going to go ahead and continue from where I was before. In previously, I spoke about how they tore they tarred, feathered, set on fire, put the African man between two horses facing in opposite directions, tore him apart, and then beat the other African man to within an inch of his life. And then the African woman had to nurse him back to health. And these were two of the strongest African men among them. Not only the strongest, but the most non-compliant. The ones who didn't understand why they were in this circumstance where they were being mistreated and expected not to fight back. So they were breaking the African woman. So when this African woman again had to nurse this African man who had been beaten to within an inch of his life back to health, back to where, he was healthy again. The whole point was to tear down the African man in front of this African woman. Now, these were men that she knew and probably loved to some degree. One might have been her husband. Obviously, she would love her husband probably more than, any other man. But these were men that African women looked up to. In our culture on the African continent, this was how these African men provided for them, got them everything they needed, probably put their lives on the line when they went to hunt and get, food and raised food and things of that nature back on the African continent. These were not just any old men. These were their men. And as I said before, this happened numerous times. This was not just a one-off where, they just tore this one African man apart with horses and beat the other one to within an inch of his life. This did not happen just one time. The same group of Africans, from men to children, to infants, to little ones, saw this over and over again. And the OPECs did this as many times as they thought necessary in order to break the will, the spiritual, the physical, the mental will of the African people. And they watched them to see what kind of effect it was having on them. And when they recognized that the job had been done, then they stopped ripping African men apart, and then they stopped beating African men to within an inch of their life. They knew that the real threat to them was the African male. And they knew that because of the African's male respect and regard and love for the African woman was so great, that was the way to get to the African man. You could have probably beat that African man all day long, And as long as you weren't beating his woman or threatening his children, he would take it. He would gladly have laid down his life for his wife. But they knew that. And so because they knew that, that's what they targeted. And they just imagine being a woman just not being able to do anything, and watching over and over and over again this occur, this happen to the men in your community, to your husband, to your brother, to your father, to your uncles, to your cousins. Just imagine being subjected to that over and over again, and not having the ability to do anything about it. Because no doubt they threatened her children if she tried to do anything about it. So she was completely broken. And then seeing that there was no man to provide for her children, she did what she needed to do to make sure that her children survived. Now, I don't know, but I kind of see a parallel there between what we have today in society, in our African community, and what occurred then. In other words, the psychological effect of the Willie Lynch method is still very much working. Listen, I've said it myself. I'm an independent black woman. Now I've stopped using black because to me that has absolutely it makes no sense and it has no meaning. But anyway, I'm a woman who has been affected by that mentality. Raising children on her own. And was in a situation where I didn't have to be in there. But I was independent. I didn't need any man to do anything for me. I could do it myself. Oh, how wrong. Oh, how wrong. I could have been in a long, prosperous relationship had I gotten out of myself. But I didn't know why I was there. I didn't even know that I was there. And that is the power that this Willie Lynch method used to put us where we are. And we have to realize that. We have to get out of this, I don't need this man. And we have to get out of that. If we ever want to get our strength as a people back, we have to get out of that. And there's a side of this that is for the men too. And we're going to get to that. But because the Willie Lynch method used African women to emasculate in their eyes African men and make them think that they weren't reliable, they couldn't trust them to take care of them, then it has to start with us. All right, look at my clock. Oh, my, running out of time again. Listen, y'all. We'll be back. All right, thank you for joining me. Peace and blessings to you. And please, 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 y'all know what I'm going to say. Stay woke. Please stay woke. This is the time to be woke. See you next time.